But Fuzzy, we got to get into the next topic. Now, Grant, this isn't, I think we've been hearing about this for a while, but I do want to talk about it because Jez Corden of Windows Central happened to get confirmation. Now, this report I pulled from, I believe it was GamesRank. I'll add the link for the show where I pulled it from, but I just have a screenshot of what was basically written. Now, as we know, roughly about a year ago, during the business thing that they had where they were kind of trying to explain that they were going multi-platform and didn't do the greatest of jobs, explaining that. I mean, they told us, first it's 4 games, it's not Indiana Jones, it's not Starfield. Well, Indiana Jones is going. Obviously, we've all known this. Things have changed. The minute that they borrowed $70 billion to buy ABK, now the money people are involved and they want their return on investment. That's what they want. And that's why they're making this big move the way that they're going multi-platform. But I think it's really just a business. Businesses, these budgets are spiraling out of control, and Xbox, they're doing what they always do. They're taking the arrows eventually. And I say everyone, I don't mean Nintendo. Nintendo is kind of been marching to their own drum for years. But that's just Nintendo. I think PlayStation will get there. I just don't know how soon Sony will get there, but we'll see. Well, Sarah Bond, during that interview, talked about next generation hardware, right? We all knew that it was in development. There's been some rumors, some talk about their next set of hardware and their pair of hardware, meaning that their handheld and their magical box is going to be 2026. Well, now I'm not so sure. Because according to Jez Corden, again of Windows Central, he dropped a little nugget of information during a recent article on the future of Xbox first-party releases, and Corden happened to mention that hardware, right? When I say hardware, it does mean both pieces, not just one. It's both pieces of hardware. Handheld is considered hardware, as well as the mythical everything box underneath the TV. Has now been moved past its early pitch stages and has been fully approved and costed, meaning that it has been funded by the powers that be, going all the way up to Amy Hood, all the way up to Satya Nadella. They've green-lit hardware, or at least a pair of hardware for next gen. I think what that does, Fuzzy Belvedere, is remove any of the doubt about Xbox dying and Xbox hardware going away, because that's been the big running narrative in recent articles, in recent community conversation, right? That Xbox going third party, they're going the way of Sega, right? They're out of the business. They're not making hardware. Well, we have confirmation that in fact they are making hardware. And Sarah Bond, listen, I'm sorry, maybe we haven't heard from her in a while, and I actually haven't. But I think when she talks, we all kind of listen. Sarah Bond is legit, right? She's the president of Xbox. She said that we were getting next generation hardware. Why wouldn't you believe her? I'm not sure, but I certainly did. I want to get your thoughts on the confirmation of the next generation hardware. I really think it does remove a tremendous amount of narrative about Xbox as a platform itself kind of going the way of the dodo because of this third party ideology that they're moving towards.
Well, we heard not too long before the this green light, message going around that it was like codename Prime. So, if it's anything like the industry I was in, where it was like prototyping for automobiles as far as parts and electronics and things along those lines, it's quite possible that their R&D team was working on this for a couple of years now and may have had a couple of different iterations. Now, the green light aspect is once you get from prototype, the pitch team has to get the funding to go to production. So I'm assuming now at this point, this means that things will be produced for the dev teams to have access to, which they probably already had something similar from a PC spec standpoint of what they were looking to accomplish. And they tend to, adjust those things fluidly up until release date. So that way the teams that are making the launch titles or the cross-gen launch titles will be able to optimize for the current hardware as well as the upcoming hardware. I have a feeling that this will still be within that 2026 range, maybe
Okay,
late
good.
2026, but it let's put it this way. They've already had a handheld something floating around. We're going to see the software for that before this year is out.
Yep.
Or at least some of us will. It may not be mass release or release for the masses, but for like those in the the insider ring and things like that on the PC side of things will probably have access to it to side load it onto like a handheld ROG Ally or Legion Go. That same software will more than likely be the operating system for Prime as well. I don't know if the handheld is included in Prime or if it's going to be its own separate device, but I would have to believe that the dev teams already kind of knew what kind of spec they were going for, whether that's RDNA 4 or some sort of hybrid mix where the Intel chips or an APU is mixed in there for the AI upscaling, which they're already working on the software aspect of it. For I think it's Windows 12 will have its own software base upscaler, and hopefully they will also have quick resume, so even PC will be able to have that feature coming soon as well. But I think with this green light aspect, that means the first few runs of the prototypes or the ones that would go to the dev teams as well as other publishers that are making software for the device. I think that's what will probably take the next 6 months to 8 months. And then after that, as long as all of those still hold up and what they're still testing at their R&D place, that will more than likely wind up being the final result. If they have to wait on AMD for, the toolkit type thing with the RDNA 4, so be it. Or if, I don't think RDNA 5 will be on the table at that point. And if it is, it'll be similar to how RDNA 2 was for the series consoles, where it'll be great to have, but devs might not actually put it to use as far as outside of first party. But I still think 2026 is reasonable. It's cutting it awfully close. But like we've heard before, like when we've heard product names or prototype names like Durango, like what was it, Scorpio and so forth, or I forget what the one was for the series consoles before. It was like Lockhart and Anaconda, but there was a name before that, and I can't remember what it is now. But with those, the consoles were out within 2 years or less than a year and a half, I think, once we knew the code name. So us knowing the code name for Prime, I think we're still on track to see this at the end of 2026. But it's good to hear that they are staying at their word, which I know a lot of people will say, all they do is lie. Well, things change. But as far as hardware, I had no doubt that they were going to have at least one more generation of hardware. Somewhere in that generation, we might see third parties making, Xbox or made for Xbox hardware as well. Not necessarily to the extent of like the BO headsets that were sold early on in this generation, but I'm still surprised that they didn't have not a design lab, but like a Steam Deck design for Xbox this generation from the time that Steam released that, because even Steam themselves said they would be willing to work with other parties as far as some of the ins and outs of the hardware and stuff like that. So I don't know if that was ever on the table, but considering how Phil was talking about having Steam on the next Xbox, there had to have been some sort of conversations going on in relation to something like that. So don't be surprised if there's a ROG Ally or Asus ROG Xbox or Lenovo Legion Xbox in the future. Sometime either in the next generation or the generation thereafter. But as it stands now, they're definitely making hardware. Expect it to have some sort of AI component in it. Hopefully it's not like Copilot, but we'll see. But yeah, I would say the key thing I'm looking forward to would be their handheld, and in the hopes that it can play console apps as well as PC apps without having to do a full-on mode switch or streaming. If it has to do emulation, that's fine. I don't know if they've abandoned the original idea to go with Snapdragon for the handheld, which would be great as far as for power delivery. So that way you can get 6+ hours of, battery life at a minimum kind of thing. But the drawback would be they would have to do emulation for both the current PC games that are out there, because ARM is not that compatible with every game that's made. And when it comes to the console stuff, they would have to do emulation, kind of like what they're doing for Xbox One and Xbox 360, playing on the current series consoles and stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking more forward to the handheld, but I'm curious to see what this hybrid box that's part PC, part console will look like and what it will cost. So hopefully we see it. This was it the VGAs this year, and then released for next holiday or holiday 2026.
I mean, it's possible for sure. Shout out to the Ruham. He's asking how much this next Xbox is going to cost, 5, 7, or 800. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that the days of these console makers, both PlayStation and Xbox, I don't think they're eating up front costs anymore. If this is the magic box, this PC-esque thing, $700-800. I mean, it's going to be a monster. Same thing with the PlayStation. Whenever the PlayStation 6 comes out, and a lot of people are thinking that's 27, maybe even 28, because of the mid-gen refresh they did with the Pro.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be an expensive. I mean, if the Pro is $700 now, what do you think the PS6 is going to be? At least $800. So I think that the days of $400 or $500 consoles, folks, I'm here to tell you, I don't think that is going to be the case, honestly, moving forward. I think these boxes are going to be super, super expensive. And now we're also hearing that there's going to be outside manufacturers from making the next Xbox, right? Once the first box is released, you're going to be able to get, you might get a Dell, you might get a Lenovo, you may get a ROG, you might get an Alienware version of an Xbox through that manufacturer. And maybe, and again, this is spitballing here, Korkenstein, maybe these next boxes are going to be built to the consumer specification. So if you are someone that can afford a $1,500 Xbox because you want all the bells and whistles that you would get on PC, except you don't got to change any parts, you literally just buy the box. That might be something as well, which again, that's perfect for me because I don't have to build my own PC. I just look on a list and be like, oh yeah, and I want all of these expensive things. I just spent $1,700 on an Xbox. Awesome, right? I have all the bells and whistles. So we'll see how that goes. But Korkenstein, let's get your thoughts on this, because the one thing that Jez did not make mention of is how old this information is. And he was told by somebody within the Xbox camp, within Microsoft's camp. So he has obviously a connection with someone, and he has a lot of really good connections. And again, he didn't specifically say who it was, which of course he can't, but he didn't say how old the information was. So now I'm starting to think that maybe Fuzzy's onto something here. Maybe it does make the 2026 holiday release if this information is maybe 6 months old and it's been greenlit, because we got to remember, we've been hearing that they're prototyping. Like Jez Corden actually broke the story, I think it was like 6 or 7 months ago, that they're prototyping the handheld right now. So maybe this information of it being greenlit is older, and we do see these consoles in 26. Look at your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah, I think the information is relatively new, because I think what's the biggest drive, and this isn't to make it political or anything like that, but with the new presidency and tariffs being a big, talking point, that's going to shape a lot of businesses on how much, because now you have to consider, if you're paying a higher tariff cost, now what does that mean for the stuff? Are you going to have to limit or lower some of those, if you wanted a higher CPU, at first you could have afforded it and it could have made that budget range that you're looking for. But now when you add these extra costs in now for shipping, what does that do for your budget now? Are you going to have to kind of lower it down now and look at lesser parts because now you're paying 25% more to get these parts. That could be something on why they kind of waited until now to kind of get the things finalized and see exactly where it's at. It's going to shift that dynamic. I think the smarter part, and like you kind of said, have another company kind of take over. And I think that was another rumor a while back that, you know, they could release consoles that are going to be Xbox branded, but now these manufacturers are eating the cost, like Lenovo and other places that will eat the cost to make the console, but it's Xbox branded, which now allows you more affordability on, you know, if you want that $1,700, you know, box that has, you know, maybe you know, maybe a 3080 or a 4060 or 40, you know, 4070 in it. That could be a possibility, you know, because you're paying for what you want. You know, I think the information's relatively new. I do think we could be seeing a new console in 2026, maybe early 2027. They've mostly released in November. So if we don't see it at the showcase this year, it probably won't be. And if it shows next year, I don't know, could be 2027, 2026. I guess it just depends on how far out or where they're at. I mean, Sarah Bond did say a while back that we should be seeing new hardware this holiday, but we didn't really get it, unless I'm mistaken. Unless she was
No, you're
talking
correct.
about.
She did say that. That's why I know Paris had said something to the effect that and this is again, Paris Lily knows his stuff as well, said that what she meant, again, this is, you know, opinions, folks.
Mhm.
The hardware she was talking about was the diskless Series X and the new
Okay.
2 terabyte. And he might be onto something, because we obviously did not get the hardware, which I pushed back on Paris on that. I'm like, no, there's no way she would say that. It's not technically new, but it is. And I thought for sure. And of course, I was wrong. It's not a problem, folks. You know, we have opinions. Sometimes we get it wrong. I thought for sure that at the Keeleys, we were going to get some sort of handheld, at least a handheld, and we didn't. So,
You and me both.
you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
But again, that's why I think maybe this information might be new, because since it wasn't really at the Keeleys, I mean, he is talking about the new Xbox console. So is he talking about the actual box, or is he talking about a handheld? There's a lot of uncertainties here, but if Xbox now has finally got it, I think it's relatively new info. We could be seeing something soon. Maybe now that they've got their cost analysis and everything figured out, like I said, due to the economic climate change that's going on. That could be it. But we'll see. I don't know. I think the new box, if it is going to be a Steam capable machine, I think you're right. $700, $800. They are looking at more for compatibility and what they can give to the players and the consumers. So, you know, if they can give a PC-esque kind of console to the consumers, that's going to come with a price point. And I wouldn't doubt that price point is $700, $800. And, you know, maybe you could be right too about the, you know, mix and match, you know, having an Xbox, you know, Series Z or whatever with all the bells and whistles compared to like an Xbox Series A that is more like an S, you know, or that's the handheld. You know, more choices. You don't lose as a consumer with more choices. So I don't see how people can be looking at it as either a bad thing or what's coming out, but more choices and more ways to play and more ways to access your games is never a bad thing. So if Xbox wants to release 200 consoles that allow you to do that, by all means, do it. As long as me as a consumer and a gamer, I can access my content the way I like to access it and how I can access it, I'm 100% fine with it.
I mean, listen, whatever they're going to do, it's going to be different. And we know why can't it be a regular Xbox? Because Xbox just isn't just selling, right? Their current Xbox, they're great consoles, both of them. They're just not selling, which is why they went in this whole direction of putting games everywhere. Even some of the games that I still am a bit pinching myself that you're going to get Halo, Gears, and Forza on a PlayStation. Like that's just wild. But that's the crazy times we're living in, folks. Let's see. There was someone in the chat that's I've never seen before. Vox. Metamatic. Welcome to the show. That's great to see you here. He says Phil never said Steam on Xbox. No, he actually didn't. That was YouTubers jumping to conclusions. Actually, it wasn't. That was information that was put out there. This next box, you know how you know it's going to be what we're talking about? Isn't because we're looking to, for clicks ratios or anything like that. Is because Phil Spencer literally just said their next console needed to be something different. And how and why they're making it this way is to attract people that stop buying Xbox. Why would you buy an Xbox if it's just an Xbox when you have PC or you can play anywhere, right? Someone like me, this is perfect because it gives me entry into PC without me having to actually buy a PC. Now, is Good Old Games going to be in there? That I don't know about. The rumor is Epic Game Store is going to be there. Well, that makes sense. But the driving force with the conversation is Steam. And even though I know he said that that if this happened, it would kill the Windows Store, the Windows Store is freaking terrible. Everybody knows the Windows Store is terrible. And maybe this is their way of justifying that, hey, man, you know what? We're just going to get rid of the Windows Store. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It's terrible. Phil Spencer himself during an interview said it was terrible. That thing's been terrible for years. Listen, Gabe Newell is super close with Phil Spencer and Xbox, and it would make sense that you would be able to get those games, your Steam library, on an Xbox. And I think what that ultimately does is it is a bit of a Trojan horse if you think about it, because this actually works two ways. If this happens, right? Now, again, walk with me on this, ladies and gentlemen, and then we're going to get on out of here, right? Just walk with me on this. If this happens, if this actually happens, Steam on an Xbox, but you get all your Xbox stuff, Magic Box underneath your TV. This is a W for PlayStation and a W for Xbox, and here's why. Because Sony is slowly and politely moving to day and date on PC, right? I think Ghost of Yotei is the first one. I really believe that that's going to release day and date. It makes too much dollars and cents not to do it, right? It'll sell really well on PC. It's going to sell well on PlayStation, but it would sell even better on PC because there are billions of people playing on PC. But where this gets interesting is if they do day and date. Well, this is a two-sided coin. Sony doesn't have to separately make games and develop games for Xbox. They simply have to develop games for PC. And Xbox gamers who don't want to go out and buy a PlayStation 6 will be able to play all their PlayStation games that are released on their Xbox, right? Because they're available on Steam. So that's why the day and date thing for PlayStation is actually a good thing for Sony because they're going to make money. And Xbox gamers like myself, I won't need to buy a PlayStation 6 because if games are released day and date on PC on Steam, I could just buy those games and play them on my Xbox. So everybody wins. It's a giant W for the entire industry. We'll see if that happens. Again, it seems like a fairy tale, but, stranger things have happened. Forza is going to be on PS5. Go figure.
And they have to develop on the GDK. That's the other thing. So as long as they're developing on the GDK, this is why Xbox switched from the Xbox One from the SDK to the GDK, because now it allows them to build all under one platform on PC, on all that mobile, whatever it is. And it's all interchangeable. They only have to add the GDK X, I believe, which adds in the Xbox ecosystem.